Well, it was Jeff Bezos, Amazon founder, that said Amazon would not be the $995 billion company it is today without the U.S. Postal Service, highlighting just how critical a nation's postal service can be to private sector growth, especially the e-commerce space. And incidentally, Nigeria's e-commerce market was estimated at $15 billion in 2023, which should ideally be reflected in the performance of the Nigerian Postal Service. But the advent of digital technologies, which has made communication faster and more convenient, has also left the Postal Service in Nigeria grappling with reduced letter and parcel volumes and thus revenues. Infrastructure, of course, is the backbone of any postal service, ensuring the smooth and efficient movement of the Postal Service. All of these challenges are here to be discussed. Live with me from Abuja, the first female Postmaster General of Nigeria and CEO of NIPOST, Ms. Tola Odeyemi. She's a graduate of engineering and has held several roles in the public and private sector, including as head of public policy at Uber. And she previously worked with the Lagos State government and also headed the Industry, Infrastructure and Tech Projects Unit at the Central Bank. When she took on her role at NIPOST 10 months ago, Ms. Odeyemi promised to leverage technology and make NIPOST logistics, e-commerce and other arms of the agency efficient. We're going to hear about her plans to revamp NIPOST today. Welcome to the show, Ms. Odeyemi, and thanks for joining us live from the Abuja studio. Great to have you.
Good morning, Rolake. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Great. So I guess my first question to you is, what did you set out to do with NIPOST when you took on the role 10 months ago?
Thank you. So I think for me, what it was trying to find out how NIPOST could still be relevant in the 21st century. Historically, as you mentioned, NIPOST is a postal service where it was primarily males. And after the advent of technology, those numbers have dwindled, right? Historically, also, NIPOST has been very central to community development. If you look at a lot of places where we have service centers, we have 60% of our locations are in rural areas and underserved areas. And those areas always in the past looked up to the NIPOST office for most of their daily interactions with government. And so for me, it was, how do I bring NIPOST back into relevance in the 21st century for the 21st century experience, right? And how do I make it a platform for inclusive economic prosperity? How do I make it a platform for social inclusion and a platform for last mile delivery of government goods and services? So for me, in the last 10 months, it's just been about how do we recenter it into the minds of Nigerians. And that's what we've been going about doing in the last 10 months.
Yeah, thank you for that, for setting out your plans. Now, some might be asking the question whether there is really a space or a market for Nigerian Postal Service when you have a huge advent of private services for courier, for delivery. What would your response to that be?
I think, first of all, the reason why there's an advent of courier services is because the Nigerian Postal Service, through its courier and logistics regulatory department, regulates that space. So it's opened up that space, licenses both international, national, and MSME courier companies to operate in Nigeria. NIPOST is not a competitor to any of the courier companies that exist in Nigeria because we opened up the space to these companies. What we want to be is the last mile delivery. So it would interest you to know that a lot of courier companies, because they don't have the universal service obligation that NIPOST has, they don't have the network across the country that NIPOST has. We still help a lot of companies do their last mile delivery. Also, what we also help a lot of courier companies do is process their outbound and inbound. So for courier companies that need to move things outside the country, our International Mail Processing Center is where a lot of them use to export things out of Nigeria, as well as process mail. Even international e-commerce companies process mail for onward delivery into Nigeria. So there is a space. We are not competing. We're there to ensure that the sector grows and contributes to development in Nigeria, and we're there to complement their efforts in Nigeria, even as we expand our services beyond mail and parcel delivery.
Yeah, so indeed, you're saying you're not competing, you're essentially collaborating. So I think curiously, in the mind of Nigerians, most Nigerians would want to know what the pathway for a parcel or letter that is being delivered through Nigeria's postal system today is, giving all our infrastructure challenges, transportation challenges, what is a simple pathway? So if you're delivering a parcel from Lagos to Minna in the north via NIPOST, can you walk us through that process briefly? What does that look like?
Okay, so first of all, regardless, so if it's in Lagos, regardless of which post office it is being, that event A, which is the acceptance of the mail or parcel, comes through, it's channeled to our National Mail Distribution Center in Shomolu, which is our mail distribution center, the major one for the region, part of the region of the Southwest. NIPOST has 9 major mail routes that we've designed and 5 minor ones across the country. So we have created a system where we transverse the length and breadth of this country through our mail routes. So for Lagos to Minna, it would go to National Mail Distribution Center in Shomolu, and depending on which day of the week, if it's coming from Lagos, we have 2 routes from Lagos to Abuja. The first route, it will either go through the Lagos, Ibadan, Ilorin, Bida to the National Mail Distribution Center in Abuja, or if it's on the off day, it would go through the Lagos, Akure, Lokoja route to the National Mail Distribution Center here in Wuse to Abuja. From Abuja, if it's going to Minna, it would then go from Abuja through the Abuja, Ilorin, Sokoto mail route. So, Abuja, Minna, Sokoto route. So it would drop off in Minna at the General Post Office in Minna. And from there, it would then go on to the onward Office of Delivery, if it's not the General Post Office, Office of Onward Delivery in Minna, either for pickup or for last mile delivery.
Yeah, interesting. That's quite a lot of routes. Now, I'm wondering, on the NIPOST website, you have some clear delivery timing targets, and I think we have some of that data it will be flashed on screen. Your data on the website shows that you're targeting 24 hours if it's intra-city, 48 hours intercity between cities, and 72 hours nationwide. Now, given the description of that delivery route you've just made, is NIPOST actually able to meet its delivery time targets based on what you've promised the public?
So right now, I would be honest that we're not meeting some of those deliveries. I think maybe we're probably meeting the intra-city delivery targets. In terms of interstate targets, like as you mentioned, because of just road networks, sometimes financial constraints, availability of infrastructure, we're not able to meet some of those targets. But for priority items, for priority parcels, what we've done is, instead of going through those routes for priority items, sometimes we use airlines. So we would move them by air to the nearest airport and then move it by road if it's not going to the city, in the city with the airport is. So if it's going to an outside city, for example, like if it's going to Lokoja, for example, from Lagos, it will move to Abuja, and then from Abuja, we'll move it onto Lokoja. But what we're also doing right now, we've also been doing a lot of data collection to look at our timelines and to see maybe if we need to review some of them, particularly for non-priority items, because we have a social obligation. So sometimes we have to make sure that our pricing is affordable, and we have to see so right now, as we're collecting data, we're looking at, see if we review these timelines to reflect current realities and what the affordability of our products.
Yeah. So I know you're very passionate about technology, Ms. Odeyemi. You have a technology background, engineering background. And one of the things we've seen with deliveries that integrate with other sectors is technology. So what specifically is NIPOST doing, obviously being an agency of the ICT ministry, to actually introduce technological innovation to help improve speed, efficiency, as well as customer service within your agency?
So I think for one of our primary, we have a lot of things that we do, but we're talking about mail movement, for example, one of the things we're trying to do in collaboration with the Office of the Honorable Minister, Dr. Tijani, is to enhance our track and trace capability, so our end-to-end traceability, which is where we have a lot of issues with customers trying to trace. We have an IPMS system, but that wasn't as robust. So what we're doing right now is making it more robust, and including things like notification, WhatsApp notification, USSD traceability, and things like that. Also, we're also using technology outside that mail, right? We're also using technology to even do add-on services to make our service centers more relevant, like I mentioned. So we're introducing e-government services in our centers. We recently qualified as a front-end partner for NIMC, so very soon you should be able to walk into designated NIPOST offices to do your NIN registration. And this is just part of us making NIPOST relevant to the 21st century experience of Nigerians. We're also introducing digital services. If we have time, we'll talk about the digital postcode system and some of our e-commerce services. Another thing we're bringing up again, the Nigerian Postal Service has 2 licenses. We have a super agent license as well as an international money transfer operator license. So very soon, hopefully I'll come back to talk to you when we're launching our financial services, and which is we're bringing financial inclusion services to the underserved areas. So simple transactions like cash in, cash out, and bill payment, particularly for areas that are underserved in Nigeria, which again, I mentioned that 60% of our locations are where we have 60% of our service centers located.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the digital post, because I'm sure many Nigerians like me would have had experiences where you go online, you're maybe ordering something online from abroad and you want to put in your billing address or whatever the case may be, and there's a postcode box and you're stuck. And I know you've recently introduced a digital postcode service, but how can Nigerians find this information, and how can you integrate that with all the millions of e-commerce platforms you have around the world so that it's really, really easy and seamless to make payments online?
So right now we are in the process of migrating from the numeric that we have. So if you go to the NIPOST website, you would see where you have postcodes per region, and these postcodes were actually developed primarily for the postal system operation, postal systems operations, right? But we're moving to an alphanumeric postcode, which is GIS based, which then takes into account geographical expressions and administrative delineations. So far, what we've done in conjunction with our partners, which is the National Population Commission, the National Space Research and Development Agency, as well as the Office of Surveyor General, what we've done so far is done the spatial model development using geospatial information, as well as develop our geography framework for the digital postcode. And the next step we've also done is, based on what we've developed, right, using geospatial information, we've also done a microsample delineation model ground truthing. So basically where we have taken 2 areas in Buhari FCT, and we want to verify the accuracy of the model of the geospatial model that we've built, right? And right now that model, the outcome of that ground truthing is being used to update our model. Next step, which again, Nigerians will hear, because the next step means that we will then be doing ground truthing in the 36 states and the FCT, where we're doing a macro sample, right? And that way we want to ensure that the model that we've built for the alphanumeric digital postcode meets the reality on ground. Once that model is finalized, we develop the digital postcode, and that way the address verification system, we can then overlap the address verification on the digital postcode, and that way then we can build API for Nigerians to integrate and use that model. That should be ready, will be ready by Q4 2024.
Okay, so before the end of this year, because I see that's quite a lot of technology transformation. And I think Nigerians ultimately just want to know how they can access that information simply. So we'll be following up with you on the digital postcode system. But I have 2 more very quick questions for you. The first one is really around the international market, sending things from abroad in Nigeria. Most people now will go for a DHL or UPS or one of the other global private delivery models. I'm wondering what NIPOST is doing. You used to be a hub in West Africa under the Universal Postal Union. And then the final question is how the security and transportation challenges in Nigeria are impacting your ability to really scale your model. So perhaps you can talk a bit about the regionalization of your services and the internationalization of your services. And finally, how you're planning to tackle the security challenges around and the road network issues within Nigeria.
Yeah. So first of all, when it comes to you mentioned what was the ECOWAS hub, which was for the West African sub-region. So we still have an international for outbound and inbound mail. If you send anything from any designated organization, so you send anything from USPS, from Royal Mail, from Singapore Post, it will be processed through the NIPOST International Mail Processing Center in Nigeria. So only people who use the private ones, but if you're using any designated organization under the UPU, it is processed by the Nigerian Postal Service for onward delivery into Nigeria, and the same thing outwards. If you send anything through NIPOST, it is processed on the other end through the designated organization like Royal Mail and USPS outside Nigeria. In terms of the ECOWAS hub that you mentioned, we had two routes that we're using. There was the Badagry Seme route and there was the Katsina Niger Republic route. The Badagry Seme route was shut down because of, I would say, the inability of some countries to meet up with their financial obligations. But we're looking to revive that just because of the free trade agreement that Nigeria wants to take advantage of, the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement that Nigeria wants to take advantage of. The Katsina Niger one is still active, but we're looking to revive the other one. In terms of some of our constraints, I would like to use this opportunity to thank the Honorable Minister as well as the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for a lot of the things that are issues that have been solved for NIPOST. So in terms of our constraints, even what has been done is a lot of things have gone into NIPOST. Yes, a lot of things have gone into NIPOST to help us beef up our operations. So regardless of the bad road networks, again, because of a universal service obligation, we have no option but to go to where everybody is. And with the help of the Minister and the President, we now have the resources to ensure that service delivery is done for Nigerians. Thank you. Thank
you very much, Ms. Odeyemi. Sorry, we've run out of time and have to close the program. Thanks for coming to share your insights. We'll, of course, be following up with you. We were speaking to the Postmaster General, Ms. Odeyemi of NIPOST.